Another common workflow within InDesign interactive features, it's that it allows you to bring in external documents as you've seen in the past, images, audio, video, and so on, but it also allows you to bring in something called OAM files. OAM files are a file format that allows you to export HTML5 content that has been interactively created in Adobe Animate, and then it basically zips it down or kind of like compresses it into a format that you can then import into InDesign. So that way you can combine elements from InDesign and InDesign interactivity and interactive elements that you create elsewhere, like in Animate. So to do this, what we want to do is, what I want to show you is this animation in InDesign. It's basically this raise is just a movie clip that I created. Let me zoom out so you can see what it does. Let me select it and double click it so that I go into it. You will notice that it's just a rotation animation. That's all it is. You'll notice that the first frame has some kind of code. So if I select it and I press F9, the code tells me basically stop. That's all it's doing, as you saw from the coding portion of the course. So this is just telling that movie clip to stop at that point. So the rotation is not happening. It stops at the very first frame. Let me go back up to the main stage. And let's go ahead and look at what else I have here. I have an Apple image, and then the Apple, it's got a name. It is a movie clip, and it's called Apple. The rays are called rays. That's what they're called. And the Apple, it's a movie clip, so is this one as well, movie clip. And I also have code, as you can see. So if I select the code on that layer, you'll notice that the code says, when I click on Apple, call the function for the rays to go to frame 2 and play, meaning do the rotation. That's what that is supposed to do. You will notice that this is a canvas layout. So I am working in a canvas project at this point. So once again, this movie clip that I named Apple on the stage, I went ahead and applied a piece of code that tells in this movie clip on the stage, there is a movie called Apple, and it's listening for a click. Once I click on it, it's going to call a function, and the function is going to tell the other movie clip, which is raise, to go to frame 2 and play, which means do the rotation, do the animation that's inside that movie clip. So that's the setup for this movie. Let me close that. The code for this, there's nothing else on this outside of those two things. So it's fairly simple compared to what we did earlier in the semester. Now, what I want to do is I want to export this as a file format that I can take into InDesign. So to do that, I'm going to go to File, Publish Settings. Now, from Publish Settings, you have different types of publish settings for HTML5. You can export things in HTML5 format, or you can export JPEG sequences, SVG sequences, or you can export, like I said before, an OAM package. Now, like I said, the OAM package is going to collect everything that you've created here and make it available for you in a format that you can then import into InDesign. That's one. The second thing that you need to keep an eye on is where does your JavaScript or whatever code was written, where is it going to go? So basically, by default, this will create a folder for you or it will basically tell you where you want to place it, but you can choose a different area if you want to. The program will create the connection to those files. However, know that when you export all this into InDesign and you go ahead and export the EPUB from InDesign, all of the files should be in the same area within your computer. So try not to work off a network, or try not to work off separate drives. Make sure that everything is collected into one single folder. That is just good practice to maintain everything as close as possible. But you can choose, if you click on the folder, it allows you to select another area where you're going to be exporting that JavaScript. You can also set all these settings if you want to keep things. For example, if this was just an animation with no JavaScript, you can tell it to loop constantly if you wanted to have a looping thing. So for a web banner, that would be a good feature, for example, that you could have the thing loop all the time. If you have things that you have laid out and you have them in hidden layers and you want to show them, or if you have turned off layers because you had too many things going on at the same time, this is the area where you would turn them on all at the same time. We've already seen how to center stage and all that stuff that we saw before, but right now we're not worrying about the HTML content portion of these. So pretty much all of this we have already explained, where the assets go, what type of assets do we want, whether we want sprite, sheet, texture, and whatnot. I explained that, I believe it was week 8 or something like that. So you might want to go back if you want a refresher on that. That's where we saw how to set these export settings for that. Now let's click on the OAM package and determine what we want from here. Now this is fairly straightforward. It tells you, hey, you want to export this and what's the name that you want to give it. Okay, and where do you want to place it? So you choose. If you don't choose a folder, the program will export to whatever you have saved the actual FLA file. So right now I have it saved in a specific folder. I'm not going to change this, but if I needed to change it, I could change it from here as well. And then it tells you, do you want to generate from current frame? So basically it's going to tell you what's the file format, what is the poster image that you want for this when it shows on your application, the very first frame that people see. What do you want that to look like? And you can choose the file format for it. Or you can choose your own file if you have designed something else for it. That's all those are all the properties that you can change from this specific window. So with that done, what I'm going to do is, what I'm going to say is publish. So this is sending the files to a folder somewhere, and that folder is going to contain an HTML file, a JavaScript file, and the OAM file, along with whatever images it exported. So that OAM file, like I said, will be at the same place where this file is. So with that done, I've already published. That means I'm done. I already exported it. It's not opening up anything because I don't see OAM files. I need to have an OAM player, and that's where InDesign comes in. So let me just simply click OK on this and switch to InDesign. So in InDesign, I have an iPad layout. Nothing fantastic on this. Nothing's been added to it. There's nothing in any of the layers. It's just an empty canvas. So in here, I am going to bring in that file, that OAM file. So I'll go File, Import or Place, and then from the file, there is my OAM file, HTML Apple banner. That's what I just exported. And so when I click on that, it's going to tell me, okay, let's place it somewhere. You can look at options if you want to create options for this, but as is, when it comes from a program like Animate, I should have already programmed all the interactions that I want from this. So I'll click Open, and notice that it is attached like an image to my mouse. And if I click at the very corner, there it is. That is my banner, that the OAM banner that was exported from Animate. Now, remember, in Animate, I had the interactivity set up for it in HTML5. So if I go back to Animate really quick and I test this, let me just go ahead and create a test. Control Enter. This will open up a web page, and I will see my banner here. And if I click on the banner, I'll see the items rotating. So I'm creating that as the HTML5 preview. Now let's go back to InDesign. Now in InDesign, what I want to do is I want to make sure that this actually activates. So let's just simply do a preview for the EPUB interactivity. When I click on that, you'll notice that this loads just fine. And now I am inside InDesign. If I click on that banner, the rotation happens. So the interactivity that I created in Animate is respected in InDesign, just as if I was exporting this as an HTML5 document directly from InDesign into an HTML5 content. So it allows me to bring in HTML5 content into my InDesign document, maintaining that interactivity. This is very good. I mean, this is extremely powerful if you start combining the different elements of different applications into, one another. One thing that this drives you, the direction in which this drives you, is that you will probably, if you want to create fully interactive applications, very robust applications, then you need to start looking into how to integrate JavaScript into this whole thing. Because just like you're able to import OAM files, you have the ability to control items within the application itself in InDesign from those OAM files. But like I said, that would require for you to know JavaScript programming and being able to program this completely separate. And unfortunately, that's out of the scope of this class. But it shows you that you can create very intricate interactions in other programs, and you can bring them in through this file format, OAM.